The scent of antiseptic couldn't mask the underlying notes of wealth that permeated the mansion's air. Something like aged leather, expensive cologne, and the kind of clean that only comes from daily professional housekeeping. My footsteps echoed against marble floors as I followed Mrs. Vega, the stern-faced housekeeper whose silver-streaked hair was pulled back so tightly it seemed to stretch her skin. "He doesn't like strangers," she said, without turning to look at me. Her accent was thick, Spanish, or maybe Colombian. "But we have no choice now. His regular nurse quit 2 days ago." I clutched my nursing assistant certification like it was some kind of shield. 3 months of night classes after my waitressing shifts, and this was where it had led me. To the sprawling estate of a man whose name made people in our neighborhood cross themselves, or glance nervously over their shoulders. "I understand," I said, though I didn't. Not really. All I understood was that this job paid 4 times what I made at the diner, and with Mom's medical bills piling up and Lily's college tuition coming due, I couldn't afford to be picky. Mrs. Vega stopped abruptly before a set of mahogany double doors. "Mr. Castellano values his privacy. You will assist him with bathing, dressing, and medications. Nothing more. You don't ask questions. You don't talk about what you see or hear. You come. You do your job. You leave. Understand?" I nodded, but my heart was hammering against my ribs. Everyone in the city knew of Victor Castellano, even if they'd never seen his face. His name was whispered in connection with everything from protection rackets to international smuggling. The papers called him the King of the Eastern Seaboard, but the police couldn't, or wouldn't, touch him, and now I was going to bathe him. The doors swung open to reveal a bedroom larger than my entire apartment. Sunlight poured through floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked manicured gardens. The bed was massive, draped in what looked like silk, but it was empty. My eyes were drawn to the far corner of the room, where a man sat in a wheelchair, his back to us, facing the window. "Mr. Castellano," Mrs. Vega announced. "This is Elena Reyes, the new nursing assistant." He didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge us at all. Mrs. Vega gave me a sharp look. "I'll leave you to it. His bath is already prepared in the adjoining bathroom. Call if you need anything. There are guards outside." That last part didn't sound like an offer of help. It sounded like a warning. When the door closed behind her, the silence in the room became a living thing, pressing against my skin. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Mr. Castellano, I'm Elena. I'll be assisting you with your bath today." Still nothing. As I moved closer, I could see he was impeccably dressed in tailored pants and a crisp white shirt, despite being confined to the wheelchair. His dark hair was streaked with silver at the temples, neatly combed back from a strong profile. He wasn't old, maybe late 40s, but there was something in the rigid set of his shoulders that spoke of pain. "Would you like me to help you into the bathroom now?" I tried again, moving around to face him. That's when I saw his eyes, dark as midnight, sharp as blades. They cut through me with such intensity that I almost took a step back. Those eyes didn't belong to a disabled man. They belonged to a predator. "So," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to reverberate in my chest, "you're the one they sent to see the fallen king." His accent was slight, but unmistakable, adding a musical quality to his English. I swallowed hard. "I'm here to help with your bath, sir." A smile curved his lips, but it didn't reach those dark eyes. "Of course you are. That's what they all say at first." I wasn't sure what he meant by that, but I didn't want to ask. Instead, I moved behind his wheelchair and began pushing him toward the bathroom. He was heavier than I expected, solid muscle beneath the fine clothing. The bathroom was a marvel of marble and gold fixtures. A large tub was already filled with steaming water, the surface scattered with something that looked like flower petals. "Mrs. Vega mentioned you had an accident," I said, setting the brake on his wheelchair beside the tub. "May I ask what happened?" "No." The word was like a door slamming shut. I nodded, reminding myself why I was here. For the money. Just for the money. "I'll need to undress you now," I said, keeping my voice professional. I'd done this during my training, though admittedly, never with someone so intimidating. I'll be gentle." He turned those piercing eyes on me again. "I'm sure you will be. Elena Reyes, 27, formerly of 1842 Parkview Apartments. Daughter of Maria, who has stage 3 ovarian cancer. Sister to Lily, who's studying biochemistry at State. How am I doing so far?" Ice flooded my veins. "How do you know all about you?" He captured my wrist in a grip that was surprisingly strong. "I know everything about everyone who enters my home. Your background check was thorough." My mouth went dry. That's an invasion of privacy. Privacy is a luxury you can't afford. Not with your mother's treatments costing $4,300 a month and your sister's tuition at $22,000 a year. His thumb traced circles on my pulse point, sending unwelcome shivers up my arm. "Not when you're 3 months behind on rent and recently relocated to your friend Jade's couch." I snatched my hand away, anger temporarily overwhelming fear. "Are you threatening me?" To my surprise, he laughed. A rich, genuine sound that transformed his face. For a moment, I glimpsed the man he might have been in another life. Handsome, charismatic. "If I were threatening you, Elena, you wouldn't have to ask." The smile faded. "Now, are we going to continue with this bath, or would you prefer to leave? Though I should mention that the position pays $30 an hour, cash, no taxes." The amount made my head spin. That was more than I made in 3 hours at the diner. With that kind of money, I could get Mom into that clinical trial in Boston, could help Lily with her books. "The bath," I said firmly. "Let's continue with the bath." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. Good choice. I helped him out of his jacket first, then began unbuttoning his shirt. My fingers trembled slightly, but I kept my face neutral. His chest was muscled and tanned, marred by scars, some surgical, others that looked like bullet wounds. A massive tattoo covered his right shoulder and part of his chest, an intricate design of a lion surrounded by symbols I didn't recognize. As I reached for his belt, he caught my hands again. "Before we continue, there's something you should know." His voice had dropped lower. "I'm not actually paralyzed." I froze. "What?" "The wheelchair is a precaution. A piece of theater for my enemies who believe they succeeded in breaking me." His grip tightened. "Very few people know this truth. Those who do are either dead or in my innermost circle. You now belong to the latter category. Do you understand what that means?" I didn't. Not fully. But a cold knot of dread formed in my stomach. "Why are you telling me this?" His eyes never left mine. "Because Elena Reyes, I've been watching you for much longer than you realize. You aren't here by accident." My heart hammered against my ribs. "I don't understand." "You will." He released my hands and began to stand, rising from the wheelchair with fluid grace that belied any disability. He towered over me, at least 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered and intimidating. Soon enough. I backed away until I hit the marble countertop. "What do you want from me?" "Right now, just the bath you promised." He stepped closer, forcing me to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "After that, we'll discuss why you're really here." I should have run. Everything inside me screamed to flee, to get as far from this man and this mansion as possible. But then I thought of Mom's pale face as she endured another round of chemo, of Lily's desperate phone calls about textbook costs, and so I stayed, reaching for the soap with shaking hands as Victor Castellano stepped into the bath, his dark eyes never leaving mine. I had no idea then that this bizarre first meeting, this deception, would be the least shocking part of my entanglement with the most dangerous man in the city. I couldn't have known that by the end of the week, I'd be running for my life. Or that somehow, despite everything, I'd find myself running toward him instead of away. The water rippled around his powerful body as he settled into the tub, the steam rising between us like a veil about to be torn away. "Let's begin," he said. And somehow it sounded like both a promise and a threat. My hands trembled as I lathered the sponge with expensive soap that smelled of sandalwood and something darker, more exotic. Victor Castellano watched me with those predatory eyes, seemingly amused by my discomfort. "You have questions," he stated, not asked. I kept my eyes fixed on the sponge, avoiding the expanse of his muscled chest rising from the water. It's not my place to ask questions. An unusual restraint in someone so young. Water sloshed as he leaned back, exposing the column of his throat. Go ahead. Ask. I may even answer. I hesitated, then met his gaze directly. Why pretend to be disabled? Why tell me the truth? His smile was slow, calculated. The first answer is simple. When your enemies think you're weak, they become careless. The wheelchair provides strategic advantages. I began washing his shoulders, keeping my touch clinical despite the intimacy of the situation. His skin was hot beneath my fingers, marked with more scars than I'd initially noticed. A tapestry of violence etched into flesh. And the second answer? I pressed, surprising myself with my boldness. Why tell you? He captured my wrist again, pulling me closer until I was leaning precariously over the tub. Water soaked the front of my scrubs. Because I needed to see your reaction. To confirm what I already suspected about you. Which is what? My voice emerged as a whisper, that you're desperate enough to keep secrets, but not corrupted enough to exploit them. He released me and I straightened, heart pounding. A rare combination in my world. I resumed bathing him, moving the sponge down his arms, trying to maintain some semblance of professional detachment. I still don't understand why I'm here. You're here because 3 months ago, a man named Daniel Reyes stole something that belongs to me. He said it casually, as though discussing the weather rather than what I assumed was a theft punishable by death in his world. The sponge slipped from my suddenly numb fingers, splashing into the bathwater. Daniel, your ex-husband, yes. Victor's expression hardened. The father of the child you lost. The room seemed to tilt sideways. How could he possibly know about that? The miscarriage had happened 4 years ago, a private tragedy that had ultimately destroyed my brief marriage to Daniel. What does Daniel have to do with me? My voice sounded strange, distant. I haven't spoken to him in years. Perhaps. But he's been watching you. And now, he's trying to use you. I shook my head, backing away from the tub. That's impossible. Daniel moved to California after the divorce. He doesn't even know where I live now. Victor reached for a towel, standing up in one fluid motion. Water cascaded down his body as he stepped out of the tub, unashamed of his nakedness. I averted my eyes, but not before noticing the lean strength of his legs. Legs that had no business belonging to someone supposedly confined to a wheelchair. Daniel Reyes returned to this city 6 months ago, he said, wrapping the towel around his waist. He's working for the Moretti family now. My rivals. The name sent a chill through me. Even I knew about the bloody territory disputes between the Castellano and Moretti crime families. What does this have to do with me? I repeated, though a sickening suspicion was forming in my stomach. Victor moved toward me with the fluid grace of a predator. Despite the towel, he was intensely intimidating, a man accustomed to power, to being feared. 3 days ago, my security team intercepted communications revealing the Moretti's latest plan. They intended to place someone close to me, someone they could manipulate, someone with access to my private quarters and medications. His eyes narrowed. Your application for the nursing position arrived the next day, with impeccable timing and references that, when investigated, proved to be falsified. No, I gasped, genuine shock flooding through me. I applied because I saw the listing online. I needed the money. The listing that was only posted for 4 hours in the middle of the night? The one requiring advanced nursing credentials that you barely possess? He raised an eyebrow. Don't insult my intelligence, Elena. I'm not working for anyone, I insisted, panic rising in my throat. I don't even know where Daniel is. Victor studied me for a long moment. Perhaps not consciously, but someone arranged for you to find that job listing. Someone ensured your application would stand out. Someone is using you as an unwitting pawn. My mind raced. The job listing had seemed too good to be true, far too well paying for the qualifications required. My friend Jade had forwarded it to me, insisting I apply immediately. Jade, I whispered, the pieces clicking together. She must be connected to Daniel somehow. Your roommate has been dating Miguel Santoro for the past 2 months, Victor confirmed. Miguel works for Daniel, who works for the Morettis. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Jade had known how desperate I was for money, had offered me her couch when I couldn't make rent. All this time, had she been setting me up? So what happens now? My voice shook. Are you going to kill me? To my surprise, Victor laughed again. That same rich sound that transformed his severe features into something almost approachable. If I wanted you dead, Elena, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He moved past me into the bedroom, where a suit had been laid out on the bed. I followed hesitantly, still trying to process everything he'd told me. Why tell me all this? I asked. Why not just turn me away at the door? He began dressing with practiced efficiency, seemingly unconcerned about my presence. Because you've unwittingly presented me with an opportunity, one that could be beneficial for us both. I crossed my arms over my chest. I'm not going to spy for you or hurt anyone. Noble, but I'm offering something simpler. He buttoned his shirt, those dark eyes fixed on me. Continue exactly as planned. Take the job. Return to your friend's apartment. Act as though nothing has changed. While doing what? Exactly. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He smoothed down his tie. Let them think their plan is working. Let them believe you're their unwitting tool. Meanwhile, you'll be under my protection. And why would you protect me? The question came out more challenging than I'd intended. Victor moved toward me, stopping close enough that I could smell his freshly bathed skin, feel the heat radiating from his body. Because you're the perfect bait. Through you, I can feed the Morettis exactly the information I want them to have. And eventually, you'll lead me straight to Daniel Reyes and whatever he stole from me. The calculation in his voice sent a chill through me. And what happens to me when this is over? Something shifted in his expression. A softening around the eyes, so brief I might have imagined it. You'll be compensated generously. Enough to pay off your mother's medical bills and your sister's education. A new start. Somewhere far from here if you wish. It sounded too good to be true. It probably was. But what choice did I have? What if I refuse? His expression hardened again. Then you walk out that door with nothing. Return to a home where you're surrounded by people working for my enemies, and take your chances. They won't be kind when they discover you've failed in your mission, whether you were aware of it or not. A knock at the door interrupted us. Without waiting for a response, Mrs. Vega entered. Her sharp eyes taking in the scene, Victor fully dressed, me still standing awkwardly in my water-stained scrubs. Your meeting is in 20 minutes, mister. Castellano, she announced, giving me a suspicious look. Thank you, Helena. Victor nodded, then gestured to me. Ms. Reyes will be joining our staff permanently. Please show her to the guest suite where she'll be staying. Both Mrs. Vega and I stared at him in surprise. Sir? She questioned. Ms. Reyes's living situation has become compromised. She'll be safer here. Make the necessary arrangements. His tone left no room for argument. Mrs. Vega's lips thinned, but she nodded. As you wish. Victor turned to me. We'll continue our discussion over dinner. 7 o'clock. It wasn't a request. Nothing with this man was. I need to get my things, I protested weakly. My mother. Your mother will be transferred to the private wing at Memorial Hospital by this evening. He straightened his cuffs. Your sister will receive notification that her tuition has been paid in full through graduation. As for your belongings, give Helena a list of what you need. Nothing will be retrieved from your friend's apartment. My head spun. You can't just rearrange my entire life in an afternoon. The look he gave me was almost pitying. I already have, Elena. The moment you walked through my door, your old life ended. He moved toward the wheelchair, settling into it with practiced ease. The only question now is what your new life will look like. As Mrs. Vega led me from the room, I glanced back to see Victor watching me, those dark eyes calculating, assessing. I had the distinct feeling I'd just made a deal with the devil himself. The guest suite turned out to be larger than any apartment I'd ever lived in, with a 4-poster bed, sitting area, and private bathroom that could comfortably fit my entire former kitchen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the same manicured gardens visible from Victor's room, and I realized with a start that his suite must be directly above mine. Dinner is served promptly at 7, Mrs. Vega informed me, her disapproval evident in every syllable. Mr. Castellano expects punctuality. When she left, I sank onto the bed, my legs no longer able to support me. In the space of a few hours, my entire world had been upended. My job, my home, even my family's care, all now controlled by a man who moved between a wheelchair and perfectly functional legs as easily as others changed clothes. A man who believed my ex-husband had stolen from him. A man who intended to use me as bait. I should have been terrified, and part of me was. But another part, a part I didn't recognize, felt something dangerously close to exhilaration. For years, I'd been drowning in responsibility and worry, every decision dictated by financial necessity. Now, for better or worse, those decisions had been taken from me. As the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the luxurious room, I wondered what secrets this mansion held. And I wondered, with a shiver that wasn't entirely fear, what other surprises Victor Castellano had in store for me. Dinner with Victor Castellano wasn't what I expected. Instead of the formal dining room I'd glimpsed earlier, with its massive table that could seat 20, I was escorted to a smaller, more intimate space, a private terrace overlooking the city lights, set with a table for two. He was already waiting when I arrived, seated in his wheelchair, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. In the soft glow of strategically placed lanterns, with the city spread below us like a carpet of stars, he looked less like a feared crime lord and more like a successful businessman enjoying the view from his penthouse. Elena. He didn't turn, but somehow knew it was me. Right on time. I approached cautiously, taking in the elegant table setting, the bottle of wine already breathing, the covered silver platters, no Mrs. Vega in sight, no guards visible, though I had no doubt they were nearby. I didn't bring anything appropriate to wear, I said, gesturing awkwardly at my borrowed clothes, simple black pants and a blouse that had been delivered to my room, along with an entire wardrobe in exactly my size. Another unsettling reminder of how thoroughly he'd investigated me. You look perfect. His eyes tracked my movement as I took the seat opposite him, a predator watching potential prey. Are you comfortable in your new accommodations? The room is beautiful, I admitted. But it doesn't change the fact that I'm essentially a prisoner here. A hint of a smile touched his lips. A prisoner in a gilded cage is still a prisoner. Is that it? He poured wine into my glass without asking if I wanted any. Drink. It will help with the shock. I took a sip, the rich flavor exploding on my tongue. I knew nothing about fine wines, but even I could tell this cost more than my monthly rent. I called the hospital. My mother's been moved to a private suite. The nurse told me all her expenses are covered. As promised. He lifted the covers from our plates, revealing perfectly seared steaks, roasted vegetables, and something that looked like risotto. I keep my word, Elena, always. I set my wine down. Why go to all this trouble? You could have hired anyone to be your bait. Not anyone. He cut into his steak with precise movements. It needed to be you. Because of Daniel. Yes and no. His dark eyes met mine over the rim of his glass. Daniel Reyes is merely a foot soldier in a larger war, replaceable. What he stole, however, is not. I pushed food around on my plate, my appetite diminished by anxiety. What did he take? Victor studied me for a long moment before answering. Information. The kind that could dismantle everything I've built over the past 20 years. Blackmail material, I translated. Among other things. He set his utensils down. Your ex-husband accessed financial records, client lists, distribution networks, and evidence of certain arrangements with people who publicly claim to be my adversaries. The implications were clear. Daniel had stolen evidence of corruption, of criminal enterprises, possibly even of police or politicians on Victor's payroll. Why would he target you specifically? I asked, the pieces not quite fitting together. Daniel was never involved in your kind of business when I knew him. Are you certain of that? Victor's voice was soft, dangerous. You were married for, what was it, 16 months? How well did you really know him? I opened my mouth to object, then closed it. The truth was, Daniel and I had married young, a whirlwind romance that burned hot and fast. When I lost the baby at 4 months, something broke between us. He'd grown distant, staying out at all hours, coming home smelling of alcohol and perfume that wasn't mine. I'd filed for divorce 6 months later, and he hadn't even contested it. Not well enough, apparently, I finally admitted. Daniel Reyes has been involved with the Moretti family since before he met you, Victor said, confirming my worst suspicions. Your marriage was no accident, Elena. The food turned to ash in my mouth. What are you saying? I'm saying you were targeted from the beginning. Your mother worked as a housekeeper for one of my associates. Through her, Daniel could access information about my organization. Or at least, that was the plan. My hands began to shake. That's not possible. My mother cleaned houses for wealthy families, yes, but she never mentioned Santiago Vega, my cousin. Your mother worked in his home for 6 years. The room seemed to spin around me. Santiago Vega. I'd met him once or twice when picking my mother up from work. A handsome, serious man who always treated her with respect. I'd had no idea he was connected to Victor Castellano or the criminal underworld. Mom never said anything, I whispered. She wouldn't have known. Santiago keeps his business and family connections separate from his public life. Victor refilled my wine glass. Daniel's plan fell apart when your mother became ill and had to stop working. And then, of course, there was the pregnancy. I flinched at the mention. Don't. To my surprise, something like compassion flickered across his face. I apologize. That was insensitive. We ate in silence for several minutes, the weight of these revelations pressing down on me. My entire relationship with Daniel, our whirlwind courtship, his insistence on meeting my mother, even his initial attraction to me, had all been calculated. A means to an end. Why tell me all this? I finally asked. Why not just use me as your pawn without explaining? Victor pushed his wheelchair back slightly, his expression unreadable. Because unlike the Morettis, I don't use people without their understanding. It's inefficient, breeds resentment, creates unnecessary complications. And you prefer your complications necessary? The words slipped out before I could stop them. To my relief, he laughed, that same rich sound that transformed his face, making him almost handsome. Precisely. He gestured toward the city below. Do you know what the difference is between men like me and men like Antonio Moretti? I shook my head. Control. Victor's voice dropped lower. Moretti craves chaos, uses fear as a blunt instrument. I prefer precision. As if to demonstrate, he suddenly rose from the wheelchair, moving with fluid grace to the terrace railing. Standing there in his perfectly tailored suit, backlit by the city lights, he cut an imposing figure, powerful, dangerous, and undeniably magnetic. You should remain in the wheelchair when the staff is around, I said quietly. He glanced over his shoulder, surprise evident in his expression. You're concerned for my security? I shrugged, unsure myself why I'd said it. You've protected my family. I'm just returning the favor. Something shifted in his eyes, a warmth that hadn't been there before. He returned to the table, but didn't sit back in the wheelchair. Instead, he took the chair opposite me, leaning forward with an intensity that made my breath catch. Tomorrow, he said, you'll begin your official duties as my nurse. You'll administer fake medications, help me maintain the charade of disability, and report back to your friend Jade that everything is proceeding as planned. I nodded slowly. And then? And then we wait. His fingers drummed once on the table, the only sign of impatience. The Morettis will make contact, likely through Jade. They'll want information. Access codes, schedules. You'll provide exactly what I tell you to provide. Won't they be suspicious if I suddenly have access to sensitive information? Victor's smile was cold. They expect you to use your feminine charms to extract information from a lonely, disabled old man. We'll let them believe their plan is working. Heat flooded my cheeks at the implication. I'm not going to seduce you for information. Aren't you? His gaze traveled slowly down my face to my throat, lingering there before returning to my eyes. That would be disappointing. The air between us seemed to thicken, charged with something dangerous and electric. I took a large swallow of wine, trying to break the tension. What happens when Daniel makes contact? I asked, bringing us back to the matter at hand. When he does, you'll arrange a meeting, somewhere public, somewhere he feels safe. Victor's expression hardened. And then my men will recover what was stolen. And Daniel? Victor studied me. Does it matter to you what happens to the man who married you as part of a criminal conspiracy? Who watched you suffer the loss of your child and then abandoned you? I wanted to say no, wanted to feel nothing but hatred for the man who had apparently used me in the worst possible way. But the truth was more complicated. I don't want his blood on my hands, I said finally. Victor nodded, as if my answer confirmed something for him. If he cooperates, he lives. That's the most I can promise. It was more than I expected. I nodded, accepting the terms of our strange arrangement. As if on cue, Mrs. Vega appeared to clear our plates and bring dessert, some kind of chocolate confection that under normal circumstances would have delighted me. Tonight, though, food was the last thing on my mind. One last thing, Victor said as Mrs. Vega retreated. While you're staying here, you'll be under constant protection. My security team will accompany you anytime you leave the estate. I can take care of myself, I protested. I'm sure you believe that. His tone was patronizing, but the Moretti family is not known for their subtlety or mercy. If they suspect you're working with me rather than against me, they won't hesitate to eliminate you. The casual way he referred to my potential murder sent a chill through me. This is really happening, isn't it? I'm caught in the middle of a mob war. Yes. No sugarcoating, no reassurance, just cold, hard truth. But you have one advantage they don't expect. What's that? His hand covered mine on the table, warm and strong. Me. The simple touch sent an electric current up my arm, disturbing in its intensity. I pulled away, unnerved by my body's reaction to this dangerous man. It's been a long day, I said, pushing my chair back. I should get some rest before tomorrow. Victor didn't try to stop me, simply nodded. Franco will escort you to your room. Don't leave it until morning. The security system is set to full alert after midnight, and the consequences of triggering it would be unpleasant. Another gentle reminder of my captivity. Wrapped in the guise of concern, Franco turned out to be a mountain of a man who materialized from the shadows as soon as I exited the terrace. He said nothing as he led me back through the labyrinthine corridors of the mansion, his hulking presence both threatening and oddly reassuring. At least with him beside me, no one else would dare approach. Back in my suite, I found fresh night clothes laid out on the bed, and a phone on the nightstand. Not my old one, but a new model I didn't recognize. For emergencies only, Franco rumbled, the first words he'd spoken. It connects directly to security and to Mr. Castellano. Don't try to call anyone else, it won't work. When he left, I sank onto the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the span of a single day. This morning, I had been a struggling nursing assistant, sleeping on my friend's couch, drowning in debt and worry. Tonight, I was the protected guest of the city's most notorious crime lord, caught in a deadly game between rival families, with my treacherous ex-husband somewhere in the mix. I should have been terrified, and part of me was. But as I slipped between sheets finer than any I'd ever touched, in a room more luxurious than I'd ever known, another emotion surfaced. One I was ashamed to acknowledge. For the first time in years, I felt alive. Really alive. With every nerve-ending tingling and every sense heightened, the constant low-grade anxiety about money and survival had been replaced by a more immediate primal fear, but also by its counterpart, exhilaration. Victor Castellano was dangerous. His world was dangerous, but as I drifted toward sleep, his dark eyes and enigmatic smile followed me into dreams that left me restless and flushed in the pre-dawn hours. I was playing with fire, and some reckless part of me wanted to get burned. Morning arrived with a gentle knock at my door, and a tray of breakfast more elaborate than any I'd ever seen. Fresh fruit arranged in a spiral pattern, delicate pastries, a silver pot of coffee that smelled like heaven, and a single red rose in a crystal vase. No note, but the message was clear. My captor was also my host, and apparently determined to treat me as a guest rather than a prisoner. I ate quickly, showered in the marble bathroom with its rainfall showerhead and products that smelled like they cost more than my monthly salary, and dressed in the clothes that had been provided, simple black pants and a white blouse that could pass for nursing attire. professional, but fitted perfectly to my measurements in a way that made me wonder again about the extent of Victor's surveillance before I'd ever set foot in his home. Another knock came as I was fastening my hair back. "Enter," I called, half expecting Mrs. Vega with her perpetual frown. Instead, a young man in a tailored suit stepped inside, his posture military straight. "Ms. Reyes, I'm Anthony, head of Mr. Castellanos' security detail. I'll be briefing you on today's schedule and protocols." He was younger than I expected for someone in his position, maybe early 30s, with close-cropped dark hair and the watchful eyes of someone who assessed threats for a living. "Is Victor, Mr. Castellano, expecting me?" I asked, unsettled by the formality. "In approximately 40 minutes. First, we need to discuss your communication with the outside world." Anthony's expression remained neutral, but I detected a note of suspicion in his voice. Clearly, he knew exactly why I was here and didn't entirely trust me. Smart man. "I've been told to check in with Jade, my roommate, to maintain our cover," I said. He nodded. "Yes, all communications will be monitored. You'll use this." He handed me a sleek smartphone, different from the emergency phone by my bed. It contains tracking software and recording capabilities. Every call, text, and app is accessible to our team. I took it gingerly. So much for privacy. "Privacy is a luxury you surrendered when you entered this house, Ms. Reyes." His tone softened slightly. "For your own protection, as much as ours. The Morettis have eyes and ears everywhere." I slipped the phone into my pocket. "Any other rules I should know about?" "Several." Anthony moved toward the door. "I'll explain as we walk. Mr. Castellano is waiting in the East Wing study." The mansion was even more impressive by daylight. Soaring ceilings, priceless artwork, floors of marble and hardwood so polished I could see my reflection. As we walked, Anthony detailed my restrictions. I wasn't to enter certain areas of the house without escort, couldn't leave the property without security, and needed to report any contact from outsiders immediately. "You'll also need this." He handed me an ID badge with my photo, a photo I'd never posed for. "It provides access to Mr. Castellanos' private areas and confirms your status to the staff and security teams." "My status is what, exactly?" I asked. Anthony's expression remained professionally blank. "As someone under Mr. Castellanos' personal protection." We stopped before a set of double doors made of dark wood, inlaid with what looked like mother of pearl. Anthony knocked once, then stepped back. "Enter." Victor's voice came from within, that same commanding tone that seemed to vibrate through my bones. The study was a masculine space of leather and wood, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a massive desk positioned to overlook the gardens. Victor sat behind it in his wheelchair, reading glasses perched on his nose as he reviewed documents. He looked up as I entered, those dark eyes instantly assessing. "Thank you, Anthony. That will be all for now." The security chief nodded and withdrew, closing the doors behind him. "Did you sleep well?" Victor asked, removing his glasses. "As well as can be expected, given the circumstances." I remained standing, unsure of my role in this strange pantomime we were playing. "Sit." He gestured to the chair opposite his desk. "We have much to discuss before your official duties begin." I sat, crossing my legs and trying to project more confidence than I felt. "Have you heard from the Morettis or Daniel?" "Not directly, but my sources confirm they're becoming impatient." He steepled his fingers. "I've arranged for you to have 2 hours of free time this afternoon. You'll use it to contact Jade." "And say what?" "That you've gained my trust, that I'm heavily medicated and often confused, that you believe you can access my private files within a few days." His mouth curved in a humorless smile. "You'll also mention that I seem to have taken a personal interest in you." Heat crept up my neck. "Won't she find that suspicious? On the contrary. It's exactly what they're counting on. The lonely, crippled old man developing feelings for his pretty young caretaker." There was an edge to his voice, something almost like bitterness. "Men in my position are presumed to have certain weaknesses. And do you?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. His eyes darkened. "We all have weaknesses, Elena. The difference is, I know mine." The intensity of his gaze made me look away first. "So I tell Jade you're interested in me. And then what?" "Then we wait for their next move. In the meantime, you'll actually perform the duties you were hired for." He pushed a folder across the desk. My real medical needs are minimal, occasional pain management for an old shoulder injury. The rest is theater. I opened the folder, scanning the detailed schedule of medications, most of them vitamins or placebos, and physical therapy routines. This is elaborate, necessarily so. The staff believes I was injured in an assassination attempt 18 months ago. Only a handful know the truth. He wheeled around the desk, coming to stop beside me. Which brings us to your first official duty of the day. I looked up, suddenly aware of how close he was, which is, help me prepare for a meeting with my lieutenants. They expect to see their leader appropriately diminished. For the next hour, I helped Victor transform himself into the image of a man still recovering from devastating injuries. He showed me how to adjust the wheelchair to a slightly reclined position, how to arrange pillows to support a supposedly weakened spine, how to apply subtle makeup that suggested lingering illness. You've thought of everything, I murmured, watching him inspect my work in a small mirror. Survival depends on attention to detail. He caught my wrist as I started to move away. There's one more thing, Elena. What's that? During the meeting, you'll need to administer my medication. It's important the others see you in this role. His grip was warm, firm, but not painful. Can you play your part convincingly? I met his gaze steadily. I was married to a con man for 16 months without realizing it. I think I can manage a little acting. Something like admiration flickered in his eyes. Good. The meeting took place in a conference room I hadn't seen before, with Victor positioned at the head of the table, looking frail but commanding. 5 men and 1 woman were already seated when we entered, all rising respectfully until Victor waved them down. I recognized Santiago Vega immediately, my mother's former employer, Victor's cousin, though he gave no indication he knew me. The others were introduced only by first names: Marco, Liam, Dominic, Raphael, and the woman Veronica, whose sharp eyes missed nothing. I played my role perfectly, adjusting Victor's wheelchair, discreetly checking his vitals, and at the appointed time, administering his critical medication with professional efficiency. All the while, I kept my expression neutral, my eyes downcast as they discussed business in carefully coded language. The shipment from our Canadian friends arrived safely, Marco reported. Quality exactly as promised. Our friends in blue have increased patrols in the South District, Liam added. Routing has been adjusted accordingly. On and on it went, a business meeting like any other, except that the business was clearly illegal. I tried not to listen too carefully, giving myself plausible deniability. Halfway through, the conference room doors opened, and Mrs. Vega entered with refreshments. As she set the tray down, her eyes met mine with undisguised suspicion. I'd been in the house less than 24 hours, and already I was participating in confidential meetings. Her disapproval was palpable. After she left, Victor addressed the group again. There's been movement from the Moretti side. They're seeking leverage. The atmosphere in the room instantly tensed. What kind of leverage? Veronica asked, her voice sharp. Victor's hand found mine on the arm of his wheelchair, a gesture that appeared to be seeking comfort, but was actually a signal we'd discussed earlier. I dutifully adjusted his position, leaning closer as if checking his comfort. The personal kind, he replied, his eyes meeting each of theirs in turn. They've sent someone to infiltrate my household staff. Shocked murmurs rippled around the table. Who? Santiago demanded. It's being handled, Victor said with finality. Ms. Reyes is assisting with the situation. All eyes turned to me, assessing, calculating. I kept my expression neutral, though my heart hammered in my chest. Can she be trusted? Dominic asked bluntly. Victor's fingers tightened on mine. With my life. The statement hung in the air, weighted with meaning I couldn't fully decipher. Was it part of the act or something more? The uncertainty made my pulse quicken. After the meeting concluded and the others filed out, Victor released my hand. You did well, he said softly. What was that about? I asked. Why tell them I'm helping you? Because you are. He wheeled toward the door. And because now they'll be watching you too. Additional protection. Or additional suspicion, I countered. He smiled, a genuine expression that softened his features. You're learning quickly, Elena. Good. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of activity as I shadowed Victor through his daily routine. He maintained the wheelchair charade whenever staff was present, but when we were alone in his suite, he moved freely, his powerful body betraying no hint of the disability he pretended to have. At precisely 2 p.m., Anthony appeared to escort me to the garden for my free time. Victor and I had rehearsed what I would say to Jade, how I would appear both nervous and excited about my new position. The garden was beautiful, with winding paths through roses and sculpted hedges, fountains providing a gentle soundtrack that would make electronic eavesdropping difficult. I sat on a stone bench near a particularly noisy water feature and pulled out my phone. Jade answered on the second ring. Elena? Oh my God, are you okay? I've been so worried. The concern in her voice sounded genuine, making me wonder if she was an unwitting pawn in this game too. Or maybe she was just a very good actress. I'm fine, I said, injecting a note of breathless excitement into my voice. Better than fine, actually. This job it's incredible, Jade. Really? I mean, that's great, but isn't it creepy there? With him? I lowered my voice conspiratorially. It's nothing like I expected. He's not scary at all, just lonely. And he's kind of amazing, actually. Amazing? The guy's like ancient and in a wheelchair. The disgust in Jade's voice seemed real. He's not that old, I defended, surprised by how natural it felt. Maybe late 40s. And I don't know. There's something about him. He treats me like I'm special. Jade's tone changed, becoming calculating. Special how? He talks to me. Really talks to me. About books and music and his travels. And he's attentive. The way he looks at me sometimes. I let my voice trail off suggestively. Elena. Jade sounded concerned now, but I could hear the excitement underneath. Are you saying he's into you? I think so. I twisted a strand of hair around my finger, playing the part of the infatuated caregiver. It's crazy, right? But he's got me staying in this gorgeous suite, and there are clothes in my size, and he asks for me specifically for everything. Has he... you know? The eagerness in her voice made my stomach turn. No, nothing like that. But I think he trusts me. He left his office unlocked yesterday when I was helping him with physical therapy. And I saw his computer. The password was right there on a sticky note. I could practically hear Jade salivating on the other end of the line. Did you try it? Not yet. I'm scared, but... I lowered my voice further. He takes these pills that make him really out of it for a couple hours. I'm the one who administers them. Oh my God, Elena, this is... Jade paused, as if catching herself. I mean, be careful, okay? Men like that, they can be unpredictable. I know. But the money is incredible, Jade. And my mom, they've moved her to this amazing private suite at Memorial. All her treatments are covered now. That's great. Her voice had an odd edge to it. Listen, an old friend is in town and wants to meet up. Do you think you could get away for coffee tomorrow? The cafe on Westlake? My pulse quickened. This was it. The contact we'd been waiting for. I might be able to get a couple hours off, I said carefully. Who's the friend? Just someone from college. No one you know. The lie came easily to her. Around 2 tomorrow? The place with the good scones? I'll try. I made myself sound eager but uncertain. I have to go. He'll be expecting me for his afternoon treatment. I'll text you tomorrow if I can make it. After ending the call, I sat for a moment, trying to calm my racing heart. I'd just set up what was almost certainly a meeting with Daniel, or one of his Moretti connections. The trap was being laid, exactly as Victor had predicted. I found him in his private office, standing by the window, watching the same garden where I'd just made my call. He turned as I entered, his eyes questioning. She took the bait, I confirmed. Someone wants to meet tomorrow at 2. Westlake Cafe. Victor nodded, seeming unsurprised. Daniel will be there. Or Miguel, at minimum. What happens now? Now, he said, moving toward me with that fluid grace that still caught me off guard. We prepare you for the meeting. They'll try to extract information, perhaps give you devices to plant in my office. You need to be convincing. He stopped directly in front of me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtly masculine. "Can you face your ex-husband without giving away our arrangement?" I thought about Daniel, about the baby we'd lost, about the life I'd thought we were building together. All a lie. A means to an end for him. The hurt bloomed fresh in my chest. But beneath it was something harder, colder. "Yes," I said with certainty. "I can face him." Victor's hand came up to brush a strand of hair from my face, the gesture unexpectedly gentle. "You're stronger than they know, than perhaps even you know." His touch lingered, trailing down to the pulse point at my throat. My breath caught as his fingers rested there, feeling the rapid beating of my heart. "We should practice," he murmured, his voice dropping lower. "Make it convincing." "Practice what?" My voice was barely a whisper. His dark eyes held mine, the infatuation they expect you to feel, the weakness they believe I have for you. The air between us seemed to thicken, charged with something dangerous and electric. This wasn't part of our agreement, wasn't necessary for the plan. And yet I couldn't bring myself to step away as his hand slid to cup the back of my neck. "Is this part of the act?" I managed to ask. His smile was slow, predatory. "What do you think, Elena?" Before I could answer, the office door opened and Santiago Vega stepped in, stopping abruptly when he saw us standing so close. "Forgive the interruption," he said, his eyes moving between us with newfound interest. "I can return later." Victor didn't move away immediately, his hand lingering at my neck for a moment longer before dropping to his side. "No need. Ms. Reyes was just updating me on her call to our friend." Santiago nodded, but the speculation in his eyes was clear. The scene he'd walked in on had only reinforced the narrative we were creating. The vulnerable nurse falling for her powerful employer, the crime lord developing an inappropriate attachment to his caregiver. As I excused myself and left the room, I couldn't help but wonder how much of it really was an act. The heat of Victor's touch lingered on my skin, a phantom sensation that followed me back to my suite, where I sat on the edge of my bed, trying to sort truth from fiction in this elaborate game we were playing. Tomorrow, I would face Daniel for the first time in 4 years, would see the man who had married me as part of a criminal conspiracy, who had watched me grieve our lost child while plotting to use me against Victor Castellano, the man who had broken my heart. I was ready to play my part, ready to be the bait that would lead Victor to whatever Daniel had stolen. What I wasn't ready for was the realization that somewhere in the midst of all this deception, I had begun to care what happened to the dangerous man who had turned my life upside down. And that, more than anything, terrified me. The Westlake Cafe was busy enough to provide anonymity, but not so crowded that I couldn't spot the security detail Victor had arranged. Anthony at a corner table pretending to read a newspaper, 2 others strategically positioned near exits. I recognized them from their subtle earpieces and the vigilant way they scanned the room, never lingering too long on any one person. I wore a simple sundress from the wardrobe provided at the mansion, my hair loose around my shoulders, the picture of a young woman enjoying her day off, not someone involved in a dangerous game between rival crime families. Jade was already there when I arrived, nervously stirring a latte. She jumped up to hug me, the gesture feeling hollow now that I knew her true role in all this. "You look amazing," she said, studying me with surprised admiration. "That place must be treating you well." I offered a shy smile, playing my part. "It's different, but good different, you know?" "I'm glad." She glanced toward the door. "Listen, my friend is running a little late. Let me get you something while we wait. Just tea?" "Thanks." I settled into the chair across from hers, positioning myself so I could see both the entrance and Anthony's watchful form. Jade returned with my tea and a nervous smile. "So, tell me everything. What's it like living in that mansion?" I launched into the story Victor and I had crafted. How attentive he was, how he seemed lonely despite his wealth and power, how he'd begun confiding in me about his business. I described the medications that supposedly left him disoriented, the computer with sensitive information I could access. "Elena." Jade reached across the table to squeeze my hand, her eyes suddenly serious. "I need to know something." Do you have feelings for this man? The question caught me off guard. It wasn't part of the script we'd prepared. Before I could answer, movement near the door caught my attention. A man entered the cafe, and though 4 years had passed, I recognized him instantly. Daniel. He looked different, more polished, his once shaggy hair now expensively cut, his casual clothes replaced by a tailored suit. But his eyes were the same, that warm brown that had once made me feel safe. Now they just made me feel hollow. "There's my friend," Jade said with forced brightness, waving him over. "Dan, over here." He approached our table with practiced confidence, his smile not quite reaching his eyes as they locked with mine. "Elena." My name on his lips sent an unexpected shiver through me, not of attraction, but of visceral memory. This was the voice that had whispered love to me, had promised forever, had told me everything would be okay as I lay bleeding in a hospital bed, losing our child. All lies. "Daniel." I managed to keep my voice steady. "It's been a while. Too long." He bent to kiss my cheek, his cologne unfamiliar and expensive. "You look wonderful." Jade stood abruptly. "I just remembered I have to make a call. Work emergency. I'll be right back." She disappeared, leaving me alone with the man who had shattered my life once before and was now attempting to use me again. Daniel slid into her vacant chair. "I was surprised to hear you're working for Castellano now." I sipped my tea to hide my trembling hands. Life takes unexpected turns. Indeed it does. His eyes studied me with an intensity that once would have made me blush. Now it just made my skin crawl. "How are you finding it? Working for the most dangerous man in the city?" I played the role we'd rehearsed, describing Victor as brilliant but weakened, intimidating but increasingly dependent on me. I watched Daniel's expression shift from skepticism to calculated interest. "He trusts you," Daniel stated. Not a question. I lowered my voice. "More than he should. I think he's lonely." And I remind him of someone from his past, someone important. "And he's given you access to his private quarters? His computer?" "Limited access," I said cautiously, "but growing. He likes having me nearby when he's working." Daniel reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine in a gesture that might have appeared affectionate to observers but felt predatory. "Listen carefully, Elena. This is important. Castellano has files, financial records, client information that certain people need. Why would I help you steal from him?" I pulled my hand away, feigning confusion. "The pay is good, Daniel. Better than good. And he's been kind to me." "Kind?" Daniel's laugh was cold. "Victor Castellano isn't kind to anyone. He's a monster wearing a businessman's suit." "You don't know him," I said, surprised by the defensiveness in my voice. "I know him better than you think." Daniel leaned closer. "What I'm asking isn't theft. It's justice. He destroyed my family, Elena. My father was a good man who made one mistake. Crossed Castellano's territory with a shipment. For that, my entire family paid." This wasn't in the script. Victor hadn't mentioned anything about Daniel's family. "What are you talking about?" I asked, genuinely confused. "My father, my mother, my sister, all dead because of Castellano's orders." His eyes blazed with hatred. "I was 17, the only survivor. Everything since then, including meeting you, has been about getting close enough for revenge." I stared at him, trying to process this new information. Was this another lie? Or had Victor withheld crucial details? "You married me as part of a revenge plot?" The hurt in my voice wasn't entirely feigned. Daniel had the decency to look ashamed. "It started that way. But Elena, I did care for you. When you got pregnant, I wanted out. I tried to walk away from all of it." "But you didn't," I whispered. "No." His expression hardened. "Because Castellano doesn't let people walk away. The day after I told Moretti I was done, you miscarried." Ice flooded my veins. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying it wasn't an accident." Daniel's voice dropped lower. "The fall you took on those stairs, the tea you were drinking that made you so dizzy. Castellano knew about the pregnancy, knew I was trying to leave. He made sure you lost that baby." The cafe seemed to tilt around me. This couldn't be true. Victor couldn't have. But how well did I really know him? A crime lord, a man who lived by violence and deception. You're lying, I said, but doubt crept into my voice. Am I? Daniel's eyes held mine. Ask yourself why he's so interested in you now. Why he moved your mother to that hospital where his people can watch her. Why he's keeping you close. It's not coincidence, Elena. It's control. I felt sick. Memories of my miscarriage flooding back. The dizziness before I fell. The strange bitter taste of the tea I'd been drinking that day. Details I'd never questioned because grief had overwhelmed everything else. What do you want from me? I managed to ask. My rehearsed lines forgotten. Access to his private server. There's a flash drive. He slipped something into my hand under the table. This will extract everything automatically. Just plug it in, wait for the light to turn green, then remove it. 2 minutes. Tops. I stared at the small device now concealed in my palm. And then what? Then you leave. Get out of that house, take your mother, and disappear. I'll have new identities waiting. Somewhere safe. Far from here. His eyes softened. I owe you that much, at least. Why should I trust you? I asked, genuine anger seeping into my voice. You lied to me for our entire relationship. Not about everything. Daniel reached for my hand again, and this time I didn't pull away. Not about caring for you. I made terrible choices, Elena. Let me make this one right. I looked into the eyes of the man I'd once loved, searching for truth among the lies. If what he was saying about Victor was true, about my miscarriage, about my mother being monitored rather than protected, then I was in even more danger than I'd realized. I need to think, I said finally. You have 48 hours. Daniel squeezed my hand. After that, Moretti takes matters into his own hands. And trust me, you don't want to be in that house when he does. As if on cue, Jade returned, all smiles and chatter about her work emergency. Daniel stood, kissing my cheek again. It was good seeing you, Elena. Think about what I said. About everything. I watched him leave, the flash drive burning a hole in my palm, doubt burning a hole in my chest. Anthony was at my side almost immediately, his hand under my elbow as he guided me out a different exit and into a waiting car with tinted windows. Did you get what we needed? He asked once we were moving. I nodded numbly, handing him the flash drive. He wants me to download files from Victor's server. Says Moretti moves in 48 hours if I don't. Anthony pocketed the device without comment, his eyes studying my face. What else did he say? I looked out the window at the passing city, my mind racing. If Daniel was lying, if this was all part of the Moretti's plot, then telling Anthony everything was the right move. But if he was telling the truth about Victor's involvement in my miscarriage, in using my mother as leverage, just details about what to download and how to get out afterward, I said, making my decision. Nothing important. Anthony seemed to accept this, turning his attention to his phone. I leaned back against the leather seat, my thoughts in chaos. I needed to speak to Victor alone, needed to see his face when I asked him about Daniel's accusations. The car pulled through the mansion's gates and around to a side entrance I hadn't used before. Anthony led me through a series of corridors to Victor's private office, where he was waiting, standing by the window, no wheelchair in sight. Leave us, he said to Anthony, who nodded and withdrew. I stood silent, watching Victor as he poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. He handed one to me, his dark eyes assessing. You seem troubled, he observed. The meeting didn't go as planned. I took a large swallow of what turned out to be very expensive whiskey, welcoming the burn. Daniel was there, as expected. He gave me this. I described the flash drive and its purpose, watching Victor's expression carefully. Anthony has it now. Victor nodded, seemingly pleased. Our technical team will analyze it. It likely contains tracking software or worse. I took another sip of whiskey, gathering my courage. He also told me other things. Things about you. Something flickered in Victor's eyes. Wariness, perhaps. Did he? He said his entire family was killed on your orders, that he's been planning revenge for years. That our marriage was part of that plan. Victor set his glass down. Most of that is true. His father worked for the Morettis, tried to move product through my territory without permission. There were consequences. Consequences that included killing an entire family? I asked, my voice tight. This is a violent business, Elena. I won't pretend otherwise. At least he wasn't lying about that. But there was more, the part I most feared to ask about. He also said, I swallowed hard. He said you were responsible for my miscarriage, that you had me drugged, knew I would fall, that it was a message to him for trying to leave the Morettis. Victor went very still, his eyes darkening. For a long, terrible moment, he said nothing. Do you believe that? He finally asked, his voice dangerously soft. I don't know what to believe anymore. My hand tightened around the glass. Is it true? He moved toward me then, each step deliberate. I held my ground, refusing to back away despite the way my heart hammered in my chest. No, he said, when he was directly before me. It is not true. I knew nothing of you until 6 months ago when Daniel resurfaced with the stolen files. I had no involvement in your miscarriage. I searched his face, looking for any sign of deception. Why should I believe you over him? Because Daniel Reyes is desperate. Because he needs you to trust him enough to betray me. Victor's hand came up to cut my face, the gesture startlingly gentle. And because I have never lied to you, Elena. Not once since you entered my home. I wanted to believe him. God help me. I wanted to believe this dangerous man whose world I'd been pulled into. There's an easy way to settle this, I said, pulling away from his touch. Let me see what was on that flash drive. If Daniel was telling the truth about my miscarriage, there might be evidence. Victor studied me for a moment, then nodded. Very well. He moved to his desk, pressing a button on his phone. Anthony, bring the device to my office, and have Veronica join us. They arrived minutes later, Veronica carrying a laptop. She was striking up close, tall, with short dark hair and intelligent eyes that assessed me coolly. It's clean, Anthony reported, handing the flash drive to Victor. No tracking software, no malware, just an extraction program designed to copy specific file types. Interesting, Victor murmured. They're being cautious. Veronica set up the laptop, her fingers flying over the keyboard. I've created a secure sandbox environment. We can see what it targets without risking our actual systems. Victor inserted the drive, and we all watched as lines of code filled the screen. Veronica narrated what we were seeing. The program searching for financial records, client lists, shipment schedules. Standard corporate espionage, she said dismissively. Nothing we haven't seen before. Wait. I leaned closer, pointing to a file name that had appeared on the screen. What's that? Project Cradle? Veronica hesitated, glancing at Victor. He nodded once, and she clicked on the file. Documents appeared, medical records, surveillance photos, and my heart stopped when I saw my own name. My pregnancy test results, doctor's appointments, photos of me and Daniel entering our old apartment building. What is this? I whispered, horror washing over me. Victor's expression darkened. Not what you think. So, he scrolled through the documents rapidly until he found what he was looking for, an internal memo with the Moretti family crest at the top. Asset DR reports positive pregnancy test. I read aloud. Value of asset increases. Proceed with Operation Cradle as discussed. More documents followed. Detailed surveillance of my daily routines. Chemical analyses of something called Compound T17. Medical projections of miscarriage probabilities at different dosages. They planned it, I said numbly. The Morettis, Daniel's people. They caused my miscarriage. Yes. Victor's voice was gentle but firm. Antonio Moretti discovered Daniel had developed real feelings for you. The pregnancy threatened his loyalty, his focus on their vendetta against me. So they eliminated the threat. Tears burned my eyes as the truth hit me with devastating clarity. And Daniel knew. He had to have known. He may not have ordered it, Victor said. But he knew afterward. These files make that clear. He chose to stay with them, to continue his mission, and to blame me instead. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. Not just that Daniel had married me as part of a revenge plot, but that he'd known who was responsible for our baby's death and had stayed loyal to them anyway. Why would he tell me it was you then? I asked, wiping away tears. Why try to turn me against you now? Victor closed the laptop gently. Because he knows I've found evidence linking the Morettis to your miscarriage. These files, he tapped the flash drive, were part of what he stole from me 6 months ago. My investigation into their operations uncovered their involvement in what happened to you. That's why I've been watching you, Elena. Not to use you, but to protect you from them. Anthony and Veronica exchanged glances, clearly surprised by this revelation. You've been investigating my miscarriage for 6 months? I asked, disbelieving. Why would you care about something that happened to a stranger 4 years ago? Victor dismissed Anthony and Veronica with a nod. When the door closed behind them, he turned back to me. Because your mother worked for my cousin for 6 years. Because Santiago considered Maria family. And by extension, so did I. When she became ill, and I learned what had happened to her daughter, to you, I made it my business to uncover the truth. So all of this, bringing me here, my mother's medical care, the protection, it wasn't just about catching Daniel or recovering files. Victor moved closer, his eyes intent on mine. The files were important, but ensuring your safety, giving you the truth about what happened to your child, that became equally important. I searched his face, looking for deception, but finding only sincerity. What happens now? Daniel said Moretti moves in 48 hours. Now, we end this. Victor's expression hardened. We feed them exactly what they expect. You, apparently betraying me with the files they want. But the information will be altered, designed to lead them into a trap. And Daniel? Victor studied me. That depends on you, Elena. What do you want to happen to the man who used you, who knew the truth about your miscarriage and chose to protect those responsible? Heat flooded my veins, not fear or attraction this time, but rage. Pure, clarifying rage. I want him to face justice, I said firmly. Real justice. Not just for what he did to me, but for helping the people who killed our child. Victor nodded, something like approval in his eyes. Then justice he will have. The next 36 hours passed in a blur of preparation. I called Daniel, told him I'd do what he asked. Victor's team prepared a modified version of the files, ones that would appear genuine but contain subtle traps and misinformation. When the moment came, I met Daniel not at the cafe as he'd suggested, but at a public park of my choosing, one where Victor's security team could maintain better control of the situation. I wore a wire, carried the doctored flash drive, and approached my ex-husband with a newfound sense of purpose. You have it? He greeted me with a kiss on the cheek that made my skin crawl. Everything you asked for. I handed him the drive, watching his face carefully. Financial records, client lists, shipping manifests. It's all there. Relief washed over his features. You've done the right thing, Elena. Now we need to get you somewhere safe. Moretti's men move tonight. Before I go anywhere with you, I said evenly. I need to know the truth. Daniel's smile faltered. What truth? About our baby. About who really caused my miscarriage. His face paled slightly. I told you, Castellano. Stop lying. My voice was steel. I saw the files, Daniel. The ones with the Moretti letterhead. Operation Cradle. Compound T-17. I saw it all. For a moment, he seemed genuinely shocked. Then his expression hardened. You shouldn't have seen those, but I did. I stepped closer, anger giving me courage. You knew. All this time, you knew it was the Morettis who killed our baby, not Victor, and you stayed with them anyway. You don't understand how this works, Elena. Daniel's voice lowered, grew dangerous. You don't just walk away from people like Antonio Moretti. I did what I had to do to survive. By blaming an innocent man? By trying to use me again? He laughed bitterly. Innocent? Victor Castellano? He's got more blood on his hands than anyone in this city. Maybe, but not our baby's blood. I stepped back, giving the signal we'd arranged. That's on the Morettis, and on you. Daniel's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. He reached inside his jacket for a weapon, I assumed, but never completed the movement. Victor's men emerged from concealment, surrounding us in seconds. And then Victor himself appeared, walking toward us with the calm confidence of a man accustomed to power. No wheelchair, no pretense of weakness, just controlled strength and deadly purpose. Daniel Reyes, he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent park. "It's been a long time." Daniel's face contorted with hatred. "Not long enough, Castellano. I think Ms. Reyes deserves to hear you admit the truth." Victor stopped beside me, his presence reassuring rather than threatening. "About her miscarriage, about the Moretti's role, about your knowledge of it. Go to hell," Daniel spat. Victor sighed, then nodded to one of his men, who stepped forward with a tablet. He played a recording. Daniel's voice clear as day. "I knew about the baby. I told Antonio it might be a problem. I didn't know what they were planning until after, I swear. But what was I supposed to do? Turn against the Morettis? It was from a phone call, I realized. They'd been monitoring him all along." Daniel lunged forward suddenly, but was restrained before he could reach either of us. "You've lost, Daniel," Victor said calmly. "The flash drive you're holding contains nothing of value. The real files, including those documenting the Moretti's role in Elena's miscarriage, have already been delivered to federal prosecutors, with evidence of money laundering, drug trafficking, and conspiracy to commit murder." Daniel's face went ashen. "You're bluffing. You'd never work with the feds. For this?" Victor's hand found mine, his grip warm and steady. I made an exception. Later, as we watched from the tinted windows of Victor's car, federal agents swarmed a Moretti-owned restaurant across town. Daniel had already been taken away, not by Victor's men, but by federal marshals. The evidence against him and the Morettis was overwhelming, Victor assured me. Justice, of a sort, would be served. "What happens now?" I asked as the car pulled away, heading back to the mansion. "To me, I mean." Victor studied me, his dark eyes unreadable. "That depends on you, Elena. Your mother's medical care is guaranteed regardless. Your sister's education as well. You're free to go wherever you wish, start a new life away from all this. And if I don't want to go?" The words surprised me as much as they seemed to surprise him. "Why would you stay?" he asked carefully. I turned to face him fully, because in the strangest way, the past week has been the most honest relationship I've ever had. You never pretended to be anything other than what you are. You protected me, helped me learn the truth, gave me justice for my child. That means something to me." His expression softened slightly. "I'm still who I am, Elena. A man with enemies, with blood on his hands. My world is dangerous, I know." I reached for his hand, a gesture that felt both daring and right. "But it's also the world where I found truth, where I found whatever this is between us." He entwined his fingers with mine, studying our joined hands. "It won't be easy. And nothing worth having ever is." I smiled faintly. "Besides, you still need a nurse for your elaborate wheelchair charade. Might as well be someone who knows the truth." Victor laughed then, that rich sound that transformed his face and made my heart skip. "I suppose I do." As the car carried us back to the mansion that had begun as my prison and somehow become something else, a sanctuary perhaps, or the beginning of something I couldn't yet name, I realized that life rarely gives us neat fairy tale endings. Instead, it gives us complicated truths, unexpected allies, and sometimes, if we're brave enough to reach for them, second chances born from the ashes of our deepest wounds. The Victor Castellano the world feared wasn't gone. He was still the dangerous, powerful man who commanded an empire from both a wheelchair and on his feet. But he was also the man who had sought justice for a child he never knew, who had protected a woman with no claim on him except a tenuous connection through her mother's former employment. And as his hand held mine, warm and steady as we drove toward an uncertain but shared future, I decided that was enough of a beginning. The rest we would write together, one day at a time,